So good evening, everybody, and welcome to the virtual chapter for March 2021. I keep forgetting what year it is. I've
Hard to keep up,
noticed
isn't
the
it?
hesitancy in there. I need a good hypnotist to help me with stuff like that. But I am Michael Watson, and I am joined here by my magnificent co-host. Say hello, Karen.
Hello, Karen. I'm Karen Hand. Good to see you from Chicago.
And we have a lovely guest this evening. And I'm really concerned. I've actually had quite a bit of communication with this woman back and forth through email and various things. And I'm not sure that I know how to pronounce your last name. And I'm going to say Paula Daoust. Am I right?
In the US, yes.
How do you say it in Canada?
Daoust. You see the look I just got from you, Karen, is why I use Daoust in the US.
Yeah, is it French?
Daoust.
Yes.
It's the
Yeah,
ST
I'm
silent.
French Canadian.
Wow. I
Okay.
didn't know that. Amazing. Well, we may learn lots and lots more from Paula tonight too.
And
So
we may very well, I may very well just call her Dr. Paula from time to time, or Dr. Paula if I were in Brazil.
well, but there's an M before her name too. And if you really get to know her well, you'll find out what the M stands for.
All right. So that's going to be lovely. We'll look forward to that. So let's let's just let them know there's CEUs available to you guys for spending your time with us this evening, and to get those CEUs, and whether you're listening on the recording as well, this is the case. You can get those CEUs by logging on to IACT or IMDHA's website, and just logging in with your ID, and a little box pops up that lets you just tell them that you spent some time with Karen and Michael and Dr. Paula, and you really want to get credit for it, and they will give you credit for an hour and a half. And I've got some announcements. I need to catch my breath. I'm going to wear
There
my
you go.
before we get started. So I've got a few announcements. The Certified Stress Management Consultant course. There we go. For IACT and IMDHA is March 27th and 28th online. If you're interested in getting certified as a stress management consultant, yours truly will be teaching that course, and contact the association, or you can just go to their website and find the information to register for that. Beginning on March 22nd, Karen and I are going to be here every Monday night for 5 weeks in a row with the presenters series for the upcoming expo. And what we do with the presenter series, each episode we interview two people that are presenting either pre or post conference programs, the longer programs. So we have 10 interviews to do over those 5 weeks, and we hope you'll join us for those. IACT, if you're a member of IACT or IMDHA, you probably received a schedule for this presenter series, or you will in your email, and then you can, of course, see when the speakers that you're most interested in are going to be on, or if there's anybody that you don't know, that's the time that you should really tune in, because it's where you get to discover who else is in the community that you just haven't met yet. But that's that's beginning March 22nd. And it's on Monday nights, and it'll be every week for 5 weeks. And that's all getting ready, of course, for the Hypno Expo, which is May 21st through the 23rd. We so wanted it to be here in Orlando this year. But once again, we are virtual. Knock wood, it's for the last time for quite a while. But we really are looking forward to it. We've got a great lineup and some great speakers. And I just also want to tell you about one other thing, a pet project of mine. I'm the president of the HEA, which is the Florida Hypnosis Group. And the HEA also has a conference coming up. They just have a one-day conference in the spring every year. It's April 24th. And at that conference, we've got some names that you will know and some names that will be new to you. Just to remind you, one of them, there's this fellow, Robert something. I can't remember his what's that fellow's last name? I know it's the same thing frontwards and backwards.
Yeah, I think it's like an automobile. What is it? Robert Otto?
Robert Otto. That is exactly right. So Robert Otto is going to kick us off with a keynote, and he's going to be followed by a lovely lady here from Florida, Lisa Mangoni, a friend of ours who does extensive work with cancer, and in fact effected a remission with herself, which is what got her working on this a few years ago. So she's going to be the second speaker that day, and in the afternoon, we're going to have Joseph Onestis. Some of you know Joseph. Joseph just lost over 100 pounds, by the way, and has literally ended his diagnosis of diabetes in the process. So he's going to talk about the work that he's been doing with that. And he works extensively with that particular issue in his local area. So we're looking forward to Joseph. That's going to be followed by Dr. Paula once again, except her topic will be a little different than tonight. Her topic that day is about conflict resolution. And we're really talking at this particular conference about surpassing the new normal, about how to get back on with it and going beyond the new normal is, I think, what we're calling it. And so there's going to be a bunch of stuff about reconciling and healing and, and all of that good stuff woven through the weekend. So it'll be Dr. Paula on conflict. And then after that, we're going to finish it off with James Tripp. Some of you know James. He's a good friend of mine from the UK, and he speaks at Hypnothoughts regularly and all that stuff. So we're really looking forward to that. And he's really going to be talking about resetting and sort of finding the new normal. There's going to be some really, really interesting stuff in what James has to share with us. So I'm looking forward to that. That's April 24th. Gosh, if you want information about that, the best way to get it would be to go to heahypnosis.com. That's the HEA's website. And there'll be information there about how you can register. The specific details of the conference are going to be posted in the next week. And then you'll be able to sign up after that. So we hope you'll join us. Now I'm all worn out. I'm ready to sit back and listen to something wonderful, except I want to give you a minute, Karen, because I know you've got some stuff going on there in Chicago.
I do. I am involved, even as we speak, in a workshop with Ashley Lynn Caputo from there in Florida. We're doing pandemic problem solving, and we have 4 weeks left on a 5-week workshop, but each week can be done individually. We do it on Thursday nights, 6 o'clock Central Time, or for you Floridians, 7 o'clock. And this week we'll be talking about pain management and ways to deal with some of those headaches and some of the things. Ashley had COVID back in June, and she is a COVID long hauler. She had a lot of those extended effects, fatigue and some pain and other things. And we kind of happened on to some excellent ways of helping. And so we're passing those along. And we're also doing taste and smell the following week. She lost her taste and smell and used essential oils to help retrain her brain to smell. So we'll be talking about that specifically in a couple of weeks. But this coming Thursday, it'll be pain management, which, whether you've had COVID or you've just been stuck at home in isolation for a year, we have some pains to manage once in a while. So that's what we've got going on. And then on May 24th, right after the Hypno Expo, Ashley and I will do that as a full day workshop. So you can take it in pieces now, or you can take it a full day on May 24th if you'd like to join us then after the conference.
Wow.
That's what's immediately going on, Michael.
Well, I tell you what, I am really fascinated with that idea about taste and smell, because I used to have good taste, but now I don't smell so good.
I don't know if we can restore good taste to you. I've known you too long for that.
I have noticed, by the way, I was thinking about doing a workshop and trying to put out some advertising and make it go viral, but it occurred to me that anything that goes viral isn't what we're going to do anymore. So we've got to change our themes. But here we are. It is Monday evening, and we are ready. Are you ready, Karen?
I am absolutely ready. I have props and everything.
Oh, gosh. Well, let me tell you, right before you do your props, as I wanted to tell you that in the length of time that I've been doing speaking and talking to groups and stuff, one of the most important things that I ever learned, and I don't know, it hit me like a ton of bricks one day, and it was probably somebody said it to me. Honestly, I can't give credit because I have no idea who. But the idea that those people that are sitting in an audience in front of you when you talk to them actually want you to do a good job was a real game changer for me. It was an absolute game changer for me. So I just wanted to put that out there. And I wanted to ask you, Karen, before we introduce our guests, if there's one thing that you know about speaking that you've learned that's been really important to you, anything that you want to tell us or that you think new speakers ought to know, or if you're passing on some wisdom?
I would say the one thing that has always worked for me is go out there and be me. Don't try to do something else. Don't try to talk about something I don't know about. Just go out and be the best Karen Hand I can be. And that seems to work for me somehow.
Wow. Well, I'll try that next time. If I go out there and be the best Karen Hand that I can.
You can't go out and be the best Karen Hand because there's that guru already exists. But you can certainly go out and be the best Michael Watson ever.
Because that guru.
See how much you've learned already?
There you go. Oh, gosh. I love you, Karen. What a nice opening. So it's great to be here. It's great to be here with you. It's great to be here with our guests. And Karen, I wonder if you would let the folks know who it is that we've got to talk with them tonight.
I would love to. I love this woman, Dr. M. Paula Daoust, that we say in the US. And since we're in the US, that's how we're going to continue to pronounce it. And she is just a powerhouse of a wealth of information. And you've been a hypnotherapist 2 years now, Paula, is that correct? Two or three, and she's already written 4 books. So, you know, she puts all of us to shame. I got to tell you, she's been a PhD for much longer than that. And so she had a little head start on that whole writing thing and getting published. But let me tell you a little bit about her. She has a doctorate in behavior psychology, and she's an expert in helping people find and maintain their peak performance. She's also a certified hypnotherapist and seamlessly blends those tools into her coaching to help people easily achieve lasting change. Over 25 years, she's taught hundreds of master level students how to be more persuasive and influential and how to successfully manage conflict, which, by the way, is another one of her books. Conflict at Work. We're not talking about that one tonight. That one's for the HEA. But tonight, we're talking about I Can Speak, Conquering Fear and Building Confidence in High Stakes Speaking Situations. So Paula, a couple of other really interesting things about this woman. She's a marathon runner, and until COVID, traveled all over the country running marathons and still runs them locally. Can't wait to get back out and do that again. An amazing woman. One thing that I'm really curious about, here we're talking about high stakes speaking situations, and it makes me think of a Fortune 500 company speaking, or speaking at a national event or on television, something like that. But in your book, Paula, you bring this down to high stakes can be different for everybody. If you're sitting down for a job interview, boy, that's a high stakes speaking engagement for you, right? And that's what you help people with. Tell us about that.
I do most of my work in a corporate setting, and I would work with people who they were talented, they were ready to move forward, and they wouldn't apply for positions because they hated a job interview. That was one issue. We had other, I run a leadership academy, and I would hear about people who would not apply to attend to the leadership academy because they would have to make one 5-minute speech. Now, for those of you who speak often in front of others, that's like, really? You're going to put that kind of roadblock in front of you because of a 5-minute speech? I got thinking about that a lot. And as a result, I developed a workshop for the folks in my corporation, and I called it I Can Speak. People reacted to that so strongly. I couldn't offer it often enough. People kept signing up for it. I got tired of teaching it after a while because the demand was so strong. It isn't just job interviews or a 5-minute speech, but I had people attending my class because they had ideas that they were uncomfortable about proposing, to stand up in front of people and explain their idea. And it would sit because they wouldn't do it. I had folks who were uncomfortable about speaking up in meetings. They had valid information or valid contributions, and they were uncomfortable about speaking up in meetings. It just, high stakes. Anytime your words are going to be evaluated, people avoid very frequently. They avoid. And it just seemed to me that there were so many folks that were limiting their careers based on that. The book was easy to write. It was probably the easiest of all the books I've written to write. So
it reads really well. It's a great, great read. And I'm guessing, Paula, that high stakes speaking could even come if you were having to have a 5-minute conversation with your teenager about something very important. I mean, it can go the gamut.
absolutely. Actually, that isn't a connection that I had made, but it's a valid one, Karen. The conflict and high stakes speaking, the tools that you use for high stakes speaking would definitely generalize to a conflict situation.
It seemed to me that anything that I'm having fear over is high stakes to me, right?
Absolutely.
So how do
Absolutely.
you deal with that?
There are many, many approaches to that. One of the things that Michael said earlier is changing your frame, thinking about it differently, and recognizing that when you are speaking, the other person is in most situations on your side. They want you to do well. I know that when I'm interviewing somebody for a position, I really want them to not be off my feet. I want them, and I'm rooting for them, and I'm asking them questions to help them. So when you remember that your audience is on your side, that's the beginning. But I have 120 other ways that you can approach that issue.
Nice. So, Dr. Paula, most people feel stressed when they're faced with a high stakes situation like that. Anyway, are we hardwired to feel stress, or is that a learned response?
It's both. It's both, Michael. It certainly begins with our wiring, because when we're out in front of people and we're speaking and we're being evaluated, we're vulnerable. We can be rejected. And our reptilian brain is very aware of that potential of rejection. And it's going to trigger that fight or flight response. So that part is definitely nature. We're wired to be uncomfortable with it. But if we have an early experience that goes badly, well, now we have data to add, and it exacerbates that automatic response. And over time, it gets worse. In fact, the more we avoid, the bigger the problem, which is, it becomes harder and harder to step up and speak.
That fear, you mentioned rejection. Is it always a fear of rejection?
When you are standing out in front of someone and your words are being evaluated, your brain is wired to go to the dark side, to see it as a risky venture. And the reason we are wired to be we're constantly scanning the environment for potential risk so that we can take proactive steps to protect ourselves. So any situation in which we are being evaluated and one of the outcomes could be rejection, we are likely to assume it will be rejected, because that gives us an opportunity to protect ourselves. It gives us that extra few seconds. I use the example of going on a camping trip. And I mean, this is one I use in a lot of different settings, but if you're going to go on a camping trip and you're going to go up maybe to one of the Dakotas, into a heavily wooded area, it's taken you hours to get there, and you finally get there, and the ranger tells you that the bears have bothered campers in the last couple of weeks. Well, there aren't hotels easy to get to, so you think, okay, well, I'm just going to follow the instructions. I'm going to put my food away properly. I'm going to go ahead and go camp. You get to your campsite, you got a little campfire, you're enjoying a nighttime beverage, which would be coffee or tea, of course. And you're chatting with your friends around that campfire, and out of the dark and into the firelight, or you're sitting around and you hear some noise out in the dark, a crash, a boom, and something moving around. Your mind is immediately making the assumption that you are threatened, that something bad, that's probably a bear. You're on your feet like that. You're looking for a weapon, and you're measuring the distance to the car. You're doing that on automatic. Now, if a bear or that beast steps out of the dark and into the light, and it's a big fat raccoon that scurries back into the dark just as quickly. Well, what did you lose by making the assumption that it was dangerous? You didn't lose anything. You just burned a few extra calories. You're fine. And now you can make fun of each other for their reaction. But if that story is slightly different, you're around that campfire chatting, you hear those noises, and you say, hey, it's fine, it's nothing, and you continue to enjoy your beverage, and out of the dark and into the light steps a big black bear, what happens? I mean, you lost critical seconds to protect yourself. And see, we're wired that way. Our brains aren't a whole lot different than our ancestors were. That wiring is still there, that if there's risk involved, we're going to make the assumption that it's a threat. And so, yeah, when we are speaking, unless I know for sure, all of my experiences told me that my audience is going to be kind and going to be nice, and they're going to love what I have to say, unless I know that for sure, I'm going to feel a certain level of threat, fear of rejection.
Well, there you go then. I mean, they're all big bad bears out there in the audience. No wonder you're afraid. And how are you ever going to get over that?
No, it's funny, Paula, because when I was a kid, if I was camping and enjoying my beverage and I heard a noise coming out of the darkness, I might have been afraid that it could have been one of my parents.
That's a whole other thing.
That's a whole nother thing. But you know what? I mean, so this stress, obviously, this can be useful, right? This is a response that is certainly valuable. Well, something that I've noticed that a lot of people do, and I know that I used to do this a long time ago. If I'm like, say, I'm at a conference and I'm talking in the front of a room, and maybe I'm a little insecure and starting to feel some of that fear of rejection. I used to have a tendency to find somebody who was smiling and nodding and really with me and focus on that person. Yeah, and I've learned to do the other one now. For me, it's more important for me to focus on. I figure that there's a room full of people that either love me or that just don't know me well enough yet. You know, so I'm going to find those people that look like they're not getting it, and really try to find some way to connect with them.
You're brave, and that's actually a good move if you have the courage to do it, because when you smile at someone, they will release some oxytocin in their system. That oxytocin makes you create a connection with that. And you definitely can warm up the audience, but there's very few people who have the courage to do that. In fact, it's easier to look for the person who is smiling because they are triggering oxytocin in you. And with that oxytocin in you, you're slowing your heartbeat, you're improving your thinking ability. Everything gets better. So
nice.
Yeah.
But on the other hand, you've just let me know that I can drug my audience just by smiling at them.
You absolutely can.
How do you help someone make friends with the stress?
Well, first of all, understand that stress is not the enemy. Yerkes Dodson, the inverted U, many of you are familiar with that. And what Yerkes Dodson showed is too little stress, and we get complacent and we get sloppy and we don't do well. Too much stress, we're going to get paralyzed. We can't think. But the sweet spot in the middle helps us perform at our best. And so understanding that it's okay to feel a little stressed. What we want to do is not eliminate it, but just ramp it back so that we are able to think, we're able to feel a certain element of calmness, and we're able to process thoughts. So yeah, and that's what the book is about, is all kinds of tools for helping you to ramp that anxiety back.
So if I've got a good handful of tools, the collection that's in your book and whatever else I've got, and I'm using them, how would you suggest that that person who's trying to develop this ability measure their progress? How do you sort of keep tabs on how you're doing?
Well, first of all, well, I have an assessment tool.
Oh.
So I would suggest that you measure yourself now. Choose a few of the tools. You don't have to use them all, and choose the ones that work for you, that feel comfortable for you.
Mhm.
Choose a couple, 2, 3, practice, and then take the assessment again, and you'll be able to see if you're making progress. And I can promise you, if you work at it, you will make progress, because with more practice, we start adding more data that we can be successful, that we're okay, that this is a safe thing to do, so that we can balance that sense of threat with experience. And again, not everything in the book is for everybody. You don't want to do, there are some things that just don't work for you, but others that will work very well. And so that's one of the things I wanted, is to give people choices on how they would approach it. Some people need to work on cognitive reframing. They're very logical, very analytic. That's great. Other folks, it's more on the emotional side, and we want to work with tools to manage emotions. It's just a matter of what's going to work best for you.
Lots of people are told when they're stressed to just stop and breathe. Why is that?
When we are stressed, our bodies are flooded with cortisol and adrenaline. And those cortisol and adrenaline interferes with our ability to think. We're really getting in our own way. When we stop and breathe, we get more oxygen into the system. We start to trigger some of those more functional neurotransmitters. We are able then to slow our heartbeat and to be able to process, to be able to think. So breathing is the number one, no matter what else you do, to stop and take some deep breaths is going to change your physiology and your ability to think. So, yeah.
One of my pals here in Chicago, Donald Hood, talks about stress management a lot with his clients. And he likes to tell them that the most important thing, the ABCs of stress management, if you will, always breathe continuously. And that is, really true. But then when you go on with that, you teach that when we are stressed, we aren't breathing. When we get mad and we're so upset, oh my gosh, I just can't handle this. What happens? You grit your teeth and you stop breathing. And so when we can step back and start breathing, we get a reset.
We actually don't stop, but we do breathe lighter and faster. And that exacerbates the heart rate. When you're breathing very quickly and very shallowly, you're not getting enough oxygen, but more importantly, your brain waves are shifting to the upper edges of the beta waves. And we don't do good thinking of that up there. Breathing helps to bring those brain waves down and closer to that sweet spot between alpha and beta. So we want to slow our heart rate. And when we slow our heart rate, we also slow the brain waves, because they work in tandem. So yeah, absolutely. Number one thing, no matter what else you do.
And I am the kind of client, you will know this, who would say, okay, great, I breathe, but that doesn't do anything. So are there rules? Is there a specific way can you teach me a tool about breathing? Is there a trick about breathing?
With this audience, probably not. You probably already know.
Assume that I don't know.
I would teach what I call it beach ball breathing. I didn't come up with that name. I don't know who did, but I like it because it gives a real clear visual for folks. I tell people to imagine that they've got a beach ball below their rib cages, and that beach ball is deflated. And they're going to breathe in through their mouth or in through their nose to the count of 4, pushing the air down and make that beach ball expand. And then to pull all that air up, deflating the beach ball, and release it out through the mouth to the count of 3. Now, there are folks who say that, and I don't know the science behind it. Clearly, I've read the science, but theoretically, when you breathe in long nerve, which is the vagus nerve, is connected to all of your organs, and it helps prompt the parasympathetic system to move in. And the parasympathetic system is that calming, that rest and digest.
I think we need to find some science, because I've heard it just the opposite, that you breathe in on a count of 4 and you breathe out on a count of 8 or something to double the amount of exhale time. And you said exhale fewer to a lesser count than the inhale. I don't know that there is a right or wrong. I'm just curious, because people are often saying this is the way you must do it. I was taught box breathing: 1, 2, 3, 4, hold, 1, 2, 3, 4, exhale, 1, 2, 3, 4, hold, 1, 2, 3, 4, right? Box breathing. And that was the way it must be done. I don't know that there is a right or a wrong. I'm just curious about the science. You're muted, Michael.
I apologize. I just wonder if I can add into that before we turn it back to you, Paula. I'm sorry if we're if we're drifting off here. I recently read something that I'm fascinated with, and I got this book not for the obvious reasons, by the way, but the title of the book is How to Get High, and it's the first of a series of books that this guy wrote. The second one is just called Breathe. I can't remember his name at the moment, but one of the things that really caught my attention, because I learned things like the way that Karen did. I learned some things in meditative practices, and I learned, that here's the right way to do it. And what this guy was suggesting is that if you inhale longer than you exhale, you're actually holding more oxygen in your body. If you exhale longer than you inhale, you're actually holding more carbon dioxide in your body. And so depending on what the effect is that you're trying to create, the way that you breathe is relevant. So you use a different, it isn't like there's the ideal way to breathe. It's the ideal way to breathe for what particular purpose or what particular situation. So it's fascinating new stuff to me. I don't know anything further about it.
So hold it longer if you want to get high. Is that the rule?
Well, I held it for a really long time, yeah, and then you'll get a buzz.
Good advice. Now that's a book I think I'm going to have to put on my wish list. I'm definitely going to want to read that.
Yeah, and in fact, I might take a minute and grab the cover so that I can give you guys the author's name before we're done here. Cool. So
I think maybe the key here is breathing. In whatever way you use it, it's definitely going to bring you back into the present moment, right?
The whole point, in addition to getting that oxygen into your body, is also to help you be present. It is a mindfulness tool. One of the other tools that I teach a lot of folks is the alternating nostril. I don't know what the science around all of that is. I do know that to do that, you need to pay attention. You need to focus on it. And so it works very well in terms of getting folks to get their mind off of the fearful event and get back into the chair that they're sitting in the room that they're in.
So does any counting of breathing, because it's going to take somebody out of the story. I'm guessing, I don't know, you work with these people an awful lot. I'm guessing that mostly what's happening is they're telling themselves a story. What of some kind or another. These people aren't going to like me. I haven't studied enough. I don't know enough. I'm not good enough. Whatever story they're telling themselves, right?
Imposter syndrome. And a lot of folks, that is exactly what's going on. I'm a big fan of Albert Ellis and his irrational beliefs. And I will spend a lot of time with folks helping them to identify which of those beliefs is haunting them. And I use the word haunting. Like anything else, an irrational belief at its lower levels can actually help us, push us to better performance. But there are folks who are so heavily influenced by those beliefs that they become incapacitated, they become paralyzed by it. And so I like to work with those and try to help bring their awareness to what is it that is pushing you in this way? What is it that is getting you to say these awful things to yourself or believe these things about yourself? And that has been an interesting journey for many to break through and to start to see themselves differently.
Do you ever ask them whose voice they're hearing saying those things to themselves?
No, I have not, and I should.
I ask that a lot. Whose voice is that? Is that yours or is that somebody else's? And it's very interesting because typically a client will say, oh, well, it's mine. And I say, are you sure? Just listen for a second. Make sure. Just make sure. I don't know. So just make sure. Well, no, that's actually my Uncle Ted or whomever, right? So they may come up with somebody entirely that planted that seed there a long time ago.
Yeah. They've been running a program based on things that they learned very, very early, or they made assumptions about very, very early. And it one of the ways to break through, to get more comfortable speaking in front of others, is to replace those programs. And I've found there are lots of ways that you can go about helping a person reprogram some of those dysfunctional habits or processes. But I found a lot of benefit in just using Albert Ellis's irrational beliefs, because people can relate to them very easily. I mean, it's not hard to find 2 or 3 of them that you know that it is influencing some of your behavior. It's not the only way to do it, but it creates some great conversation.
I'm going to have to plead ignorance and say, Albert Ellis, is that a list? Is there a list?
12 irrational beliefs that he, in all of his years of working with, it's old psychology. I got to tell you that. It was public. He first started talking about it I think in the 50s or 60s. He's published a book in the late 70s, but he's identified 12 beliefs. I know one that I am influenced by, and that is, I must achieve and I must I must produce excellence or I'm not lovable. Now, at the far end, you can see how that could be crippling.
Sure.
At the level in which it influences me, it means I get up at 5 in the morning and I write for a couple of hours, and then I get on with my day. It means that when I don't want to train for a race, I do it anyways. It pushes me. It helps me achieve good things in my life. But you can see how one of these beliefs can go way to the far end. A belief that a lot of folks will struggle with is, I can't be happy while people around me are not happy. Mm-hmm. Well, you can see how at the mid levels, that's a great thing, because I'm going to try to help people around me. But at the far end, it can be totally crippling. And so helping people identify or become more aware of what those beliefs are and how they're influencing you, and then having some conversation around disputing that belief. It works, those disputing it works very similarly to a affirmation statement. You create the argument, that the more rational argument to counter the irrational belief. And then you can use, and Karen, I use your tool, the, what is it you call
the goal
it?
affirmation, drilling down. Yeah, dropping down through, drilling down.
Where we're practicing piece by piece by piece. You demonstrated it at the last conference. That works almost like, well, it is a hypnotic experience, but it helps to integrate that disputed statement, helps to take it deeper, so that we can overlay or eliminate the irrational belief, at least ramp it backwards.
So I'd like to talk to you a little bit about writing those self affirmations, because I have kind of a love-hate relationship with affirmations. Ones that my clients come up with, that they come up with through that drop-down program, I'm a big fan of. But I'm not a big fan of saying, okay, I weigh 105 pounds. I weigh 105 pounds. I weigh 105 pounds. I guess because the camera adds 10, I should, I weigh 110 pounds. But at any rate, I would love to say that, that kind of affirmation works, but it just doesn't for me. Maybe I'm too analytical, but every time I hear myself say something like that, I call bullshit.
And you should, because that little voice in your head is saying, no, you're not. You're not. If you're going to write a self-affirmation statement that's going to be effective, first of all, you do want to start with I am, but your statement has to be something that you can't lie to yourself. So you could say, I am moving towards being 105 pounds.
Yeah, between you
I
and me,
am
I have to call
doing what I
BS on
need
that
to
too.
do.
But
What?
I said between you and me, I'd have to call BS on that too. But
Yeah, okay. Well, I am
love our
doing what
pizza.
I
What can
need
I
to
tell you?
do to be healthy.
But as you're working with someone for building a self-affirmation that actually works for them, how are you helping them write those affirmations? What are the important keys?
Well, that's the easy part. What is it you want? Why do you want it? And then again, what will that do for you? What will that do for you? What will that do for you? That helps a whole lot in pushing to get past the low-hanging fruit and to get down to what it is they really want. There's folks who will come to me and say, well, I want to be able to speak in public. Great. What will that do for you? And what will that do for you? And what we get down to is sometimes something very different than speaking in public. And we can work on that and build an affirmation statement around that. But again, an affirmation, there's nothing magical about I kind of think affirmation statements are like taking a winding back road to get where you want to go. It will get you there, but it takes a lot of practice. If instead you can tie it with some hypnosis, well, now you're taking the highway to reprogramming. And that's why I love that process that you have in terms of repeating a few words over and over and over again in that rhythmic, what you call that, your outcome, what is the name of it, Carol?
Oh, outcome specification is a whole different animal. But
no, it was another name that you had for it, but it was a process of practicing. So what I do is I have the individual, once they've written their statement, I get them to repeat after me short phrase. I break it up into several short phrases, and we repeat and repeat and repeat. And we start again, and we repeat, repeat, repeat. And you keep doing this, and then they're able to say that whole statement. Whether it's a disputation or a self-affirmation, it works the same way. They're really putting themselves into a trance as they're working their way through this. And it integrates, it's more solid, it lasts longer. So I like to do that. And folks, I've seen great results when we do that.
Now, I don't know what the difference is between, or what the opposite of an affirmation is. I was wondering that as a defamation, maybe. I'm just thinking of this guy that I know who says things, when he's not in any critical situation, there's nothing going on at the moment, but he's preparing in advance. And he'll say things to me like, whenever I have to do public speaking, I think I'm my own worst enemy. So I know, by the way, he's already preparing himself. He's literally doing a negative affirmation in that moment, that I'm going to have trouble the next time I have to speak in public because it's what I always do. So what do you say to a guy like that? See, I'm asking for a friend.
You're asking for a friend. Okay, fair enough. The first thing, I would probably teach that person to use thought stopping. You're all familiar with thought stopping. I would teach him how, when he has that thought, to immediately replace it immediately with a positive statement. And the positive statement is that I have done this, or I can do this, or I have prepared properly for this. We'll see what my outcome will be. Again, you have to tell yourself the truth. You can't lie to yourself, because that voice in your head is going to argue. So I'd have to work with your friend to help identify the right statement that would counterbalance that thought. But I would even recommend to your friend to walk around with a rubber band and snap themselves.
Yeah.
We're talking a little bit of physical punishment
Smack
to
yourself.
decrease, and then replacing it with a positive statement.
Well, I just might give you a call, and if my friend is here, I can put him on the phone and. Yeah.
Was Amy Cuddy onto anything with her posture poses, and don't get up in front of people and slouch, because that's not going to help you? I mean, was she onto anything there?
No, her science has become a little bit controversial. I think she absolutely is correct, because if you are hunched over, you start to feel crappy. I mean, when you are hunched, when you're taking up very small space, you're delivering a message to everybody else that you're not worth anything, but you're also delivering a message to yourself that I'm not. Lift your head up, your shoulders back, and you feel better.
Yeah.
Your body responds. Just the chemistry in your brain changes. It doesn't cost anything. If she's wrong, oh well, it didn't hurt anything. But I mean, we've all experienced it.
It's mind-body communication. I mean, if you think about, well, everybody do it for a second. Think about your very best friend in life has just been hired for a job overseas in the secret military, and you won't be able to talk to this person for 1 full year. You won't be able to tell them your secrets. You won't be able to have those conversations. They're going away for 1 full year, and today is the day they're leaving. Think about them leaving for 1 full year, and you won't have access to your best friend. I don't see anybody smiling. Well, except Michael. He's been trying to get rid of me for a long time. So he hears that I'm going overseas and he can't see me for a year. He's celebrating. I hear it. Okay. So now for just a moment, realize that it's been a year. Just like this past year has been a dream. It's been 1 full year, and your best friend is coming home today. And this is the day that you're going to see him. You're going to get to share all of the details, hear all of the wonderful things they did. And besides that, they'll probably bring you a present. Now, how are you feeling?
Yeah.
A little more uplifted, right?
Yeah.
And your body's, and there's some smiles going on, and people are sitting up straighter. That was just you thinking about a stupid hypothetical situation, and your body responded in kind. So if we can think ourselves into a downward spiral, can't we posture ourselves into an upward spiral? Isn't it the same kind of communication?
Really interesting.
Yeah. I have a hunch that posture makes a real difference.
You can go anywhere to any race at any time, and when you see people cross the finish line, what are they doing?
Yeah.
Their arms are out. They're taking up space. They're celebrating, and that's across all cultures. It's really interesting, and it's even people who are blind, when they accomplish, they do the same thing. They throw their arms out.
Yeah.
Posture is an exam. It communicates both to yourself and to others where you are, what you're feeling. And when you're hunched down, taking up very little space, then you're communicating to yourself. You're not going to be successful.
Yeah. And as you said before, Dr. Paula, when we're like this, there's more breathing and more breathing. much more ease of breathing. Yeah.
Go ahead.
No, go ahead, Paula.
Wow.
Does a lot of this I can see a psychology influence in your years and years of the psychology influence. I'm curious about the hypnotherapy influence, and does self guided visualization, anything like that, come into play?
Absolutely. What you expect when you the brain doesn't separate very well an actual incident from a vivid picture. And so when we can create that vivid picture of success, then we're going to create within ourselves the kind of conditions, the kind of thinking that's going to help us create the self-fulfilling prophecy. I mean, they work together. The more vivid you can make it. I know when I speak and I start to feel a little anxious, I'll close my eyes and imagine hearing the applause. I'll picture people coming up and talking to me afterwards and thanking me for whatever it was. And everything feels better. I'm able to go out and to talk. Visualization is very, very powerful. I have 2 of my sons are attorneys. I thought I raised good children, but I'm not so sure about that. But anyways, they know absolutely that what memories are what actually happened, and if they gets muddled in people's memory, especially if they ask enough of the right questions to create a picture, and then their folks believe the picture, believe that is what has happened. Well, it's the same thing. We can make this work in our favor in terms of getting more comfortable. We can picture our success. And when we picture our success, we're going to be more successful.
And we're already skilled at doing that, right? Because we've already pictured our failure if we're coming to you with that fear. So we've already pictured the failure. So we know that they're already good at that. Why not use the imagination in a different way?
One of the things I like to do with folks who are struggling with a job interview is I like to use Fritz Perl's empty chair, but I use it with a little extra in terms of before we begin, where I'm going to have a conversation with somebody in that empty chair. I'm going to be, I get them to describe what the interviewer is going to be wearing, how they're sitting, what they sound like. We're going to make that person in the empty chair as vivid as we can. And then we're going to answer questions. And then we're going to get up and we're going to go and sit down in the empty chair, and we're going to be the interviewer. And we're going to remember all those things you told me about what the interviewer looks like, smells like, sounds like, all of those things, so that you are sitting in the chair and that vivid, you are becoming the interviewer and you are asking the questions, and it changes the dynamics after we're done with that. So what did you learn? How are you feeling? And invariably folks are feeling better about going into that interview.
Nice. Nice. This is really interesting to me because I think of let's say for instance that I have got a gig coming up, and I'm going to do a presentation to this group that if I do really well, it actually could turn into a really important contract or something that's that's going to change my whole game. I guess I really have 2 questions, because what I want to ask you is, how do I get myself ready for that? But I'm asking it in 2 different ways. One is in the long term, like as I'm preparing for the thing. But the other part of it is, right, let's 10 minutes before go time. what can I do to get myself in good shape?
Let's talk about the 10 minutes before go time.
Okay.
Because what you're going to do to prepare, what I would tell you to do, Michael, what we would work out might be different than what I might talk about with Joe or Tom. But the 10 minutes before, everybody can do the same thing. Guaranteed you will feel better 10 minutes before if you physically move. Go find a set of stairs and go up and down. If you can't find stairs, just sit and move your knees up and down. Get some movement going because you want to get the oxygen in your system and you want to release that tension that's building up, so that you can feel more relaxed. Your muscles literally are relaxing.
Right.
So what do you do to build up? That answer is varied. And for different people, it's going to be different things.
I just want to make sure I understood the directions. 10 minutes before speaking, move. Not move for 10 minutes before speaking. Okay.
Move until you feel a little better.
Right. Okay. Shake it off or whatever you want to do, but get some kind of movement going 10 minutes before you speak. Okay. I just want to make sure I had that.
In fact, it's lovely that you say that, because one of the things that I notice is for me at least, and I wonder if this is other people's experiences, but that I have a tendency to, I don't know how to say it. I feel looseness in my elbows and my knees and stuff like that, and I really want that. It's kind of like the same way that maybe a tennis player will warm up and stretch in order to be able to do that. But as opposed to, there just isn't any stiffness accumulated in my joints, and that makes a lot of difference.
If I'm in a spot where I can't, I mean, I love to find a set of stairs. That works for me because I hate climbing stairs at the best of times.
I'll do the elevator.
Yeah, but right before a presentation, stairs will burn a lot of energy and really release a lot of that excess tension in the body. But if I don't have that, I like to do that brief progressive relaxation just with my hands. Tighten and release, tighten and release. That helps. And I think that gets close to what you talk about, Michael, just feeling that limpness and allowing the muscles to relax.
Sort of like a marionette or something.
Yeah. It makes perfect sense.
I'm amused. I was just thinking about what a set of stairs is. Are you ready? Here's one. And here's another one.
Okay. Find a staircase.
You talk a little bit, Paula, about support and how important it is to have support. I guess that helps you when you feel supported. You've got better stories you're telling yourself and things like that. But how does one build a support system? I mean, how do you go about doing that?
That's something that is a longer term. That's not something that you can do at the last minute, except to say, hey, I'll call my sister and say, be in the audience and smile at me. That's a support that you could use at the last minute. But if you know that you're going to make a speech at a wedding and you're really uncomfortable about doing that, you might start earlier by connecting with folks who you know are going to be on your side. You know that they're going to give you good feedback and they will help you practice. I mean, all of those things that are going to make it safer and more comfortable. So a support, when you have a support network around you, oxytocin is flowing. When oxytocin is flowing, we're going to be able to slow our heart rates down. We're going to be able to think more clearly. On another level, one of the things I talk about, in our corporation, I convinced our CEO to bring in a Toastmasters club and to cover the costs of Toastmasters, because people need practice, they need experience, they need data that they can do this and not die. And they need people around them who will give them caring feedback, give them feedback, but also be very supportive. And our Toastmasters Club now is 10 years old, and it's won some awards because it just keeps going. It just keeps moving. People find great value in it. It's a great experience. And so when you talk about support, that's one way you can create a community around it. So I personally love Toastmasters because I've seen some huge benefits when folks have participated in it.
You know, Dr. Paula, you just reminded me of something, and that is the first time that I got up in front of an audience to do a speech, and probably the first many times, or a number of first times, I would say, was when I was in high school in a speech class, and when I was a freshman in college in a required speech class, a couple of times in my life, and at that age where being received well is the most important thing in the universe. And so I was absolutely terrified. And my experience in those days is so opposite of what it is for me now. And I'm really glad that I got past it. But I can imagine a lot of people really have been damaged by high school speech classes.
My very first, you raised that, and I can't help but remember my very first experience where I literally ran off the stage. I was in 8th grade, and we all had to make a speech in front of our class, and the top 3 would get to compete in the school. And my best friend, who was very competitive, let me know that she was going to win. And I'm a little competitive too. So when she said that, no, I had to win. And I worked at it. I worked at writing that speech, and I practiced it. But my first, speaking in front of the class was hard, but it wasn't like speaking on a stage with a gym full of teachers and parents and kids. And I remember walking out, and I knew I had the very best speech because I did. I had prepared it. More importantly, my best friend's speech was written by her older sister. So a certain righteousness in me, I had to win because cheaters shouldn't win. And so I got out there, and I got about a third of the way through, and I lost track of my notes. They got out of order, and I got thrown a little bit, and my knees started to wobble. And I thought I was going to fall off the stage. And so a better move was to leave of my own accord, which I did very quickly. And I remember after everybody was done, sitting on the stage with my legs swinging, and my best friend sitting next to me, and she had just won. And I remember how devastated I felt that I had handed her. In my mind, I handed it to her, because if I had stayed there, I would have won. I know I would have, but she won instead. Now, interestingly, for me, that became a driving force to get past, to be good at this. But it could just as easily have gone the other way. And I know for a lot of folks, it has. I'm just perverse enough that I decided this was never going to happen to me again.
Yeah.
And the only way was to be good at it, or to get comfortable with it.
Yeah. Well, when you're in school, you know, it's a couple of things, because it's not just the evaluation of the audience that's evaluating you while you're there, but there's going to be a grade involved. There's going to, you know, gosh, all of that. And usually, at least for when I was a freshman in college, I know this was true. It was a required course. It wasn't like I looked at a catalog and I thought, yeah, I'm interested in public speaking. It was, you have to take this course if you want to graduate.
Yeah, and I'm not, I understand the reasoning behind that. I'm not sure that we provide the right supports. That's kind of what I ran into in my leadership academy, because I'm comfortable speaking in front of large groups, And I'm only asking for 5 minutes. Why can't they do that?
Mhm.
But when I saw one of my participants throwing up prior to that 5 minutes, that's when I really said, yeah, I can't do this to people. I've got to give them better supports. And that's when I developed the workshop for the folks in my academy. A month prior to their having to do that 5-minute speech, they take the I Can Speak workshop. It has made a big difference for folks.
I guess I learned this early on. I always learned to use some kind of cheat. I was the commencement speaker when I graduated high school, and I wanted 654 graduates on my side. So I don't mind dating myself. I don't mind being elderly anymore now that I've lined up and gotten my vaccine. I mean, now I'm pleased to be elderly because I got my vaccine. But anyway, this will also show about my elderliness.
I've been dating myself ever since COVID because I couldn't go out.
That's right. That's true. But for my high school graduation, I used a Cat Stevens song because it was a hit at the time, and opened the speech with the opening lines of the Cat Stevens song, which brought everybody on board, or so I believed. Even if it didn't, for those who didn't come on board, I didn't know about it because my belief was if I said these words, they were all going to be in chorus with me. And so that's what I mean about coming up with a cheat or two once in a while.
Not a cheat. It's not a cheat at all. Because
Whatever you want to call it, support. Let's put it in the positive and call it a support.
Okay, yeah, because what you tell yourself matters. And if you tell yourself this is going to make a difference, it is going to make a difference. And the interesting thing is when you are in those situations in which you're in a high stakes speaking, it's the first 2 or 3 minutes that are the hardest. Because once you get past that, you're focused on what you're doing and you can slow things down a little bit. If you can get through the first 2 or 3 minutes without collapsing, the rest of it's going to go much better. So yeah, it's not a cheat. That's a good strategy.
Okay, we can call it strategy too. I don't care what we call it, it works.
Yeah,
right?
Absolutely. I can see how it would.
You have a 20-item checklist that is helpful. And you say, high stakes speaking situations, you can check off some of the things, choose what you will use. You don't have to use all of them. Can you tip us off about that checklist?
Well, first of all, I'll make it available to anybody who wants it. If you jot down, you can get it at icanspeakbook.com. So it's the name of the book with the word book, icanspeakbook.com. And you can get that checklist.
Great.
It's a great little tool. You go through this, you look at, okay, yeah, that might work for me. Oh, I don't feel good about that. Oh, I could do this.
Mm-hmm.
You combine 2 or 3, maybe 4 of these. It's going to make a difference. I mean, just reminding yourself about your posture, reminding yourself to move right before a presentation. Those little things. There are some things that are going to take a little longer. Some things that are going to involve some journaling. And I'm a big fan of journaling that can help you move forward. But yeah, the 20 item checklist, you're sure to find some things on there that you might not have done before, might not have tried before, but they make a difference for you.
And just to reiterate, so this is icanspeakbook.com.
Right? I'll tell you what, I've got it on a slide. I'll show it. Is that okay?
Oh, sure. Go ahead.
Yeah.
All right. So there, you should be able to see it now. icanspeakbook.com.
Oh, there you go. Lovely.
All right.
Now, your book alludes to an awful lot of goodies that are at that checklist, at that website.
Absolutely. I have some recordings here. I'll stop sharing. Not only is the, I'm not, there we go. Okay. So not only is that checklist there, but the self-assessment tool is there.
Mhm.
And I have some recordings that are there that you can use, some visualizations, some mindfulness recordings.
Mhm. Well, you shared a
And
great deal with us already, but I'm wondering we've got a limited amount of time left, and we're gonna give people a chance to ask some questions. But I wonder if you could just go ahead and tell us a little bit about your book. And I understand that you have a course as well. Is that correct?
so the book, I think that's what we've been talking about all along. I'm not sure what else I can add to that, Michael, but there are each chapter in the book looks a little more deeply. So we're looking at understanding what you say to yourself, your self-talk, and understanding the impact that that's having. There's a chapter on self-hypnosis and the importance of using visualization, progressive relaxation, mindfulness, self-hypnosis, whatever of those tools you want. They're all close cousins. We also talk about, there's a whole chapter on changing beliefs, which gets into Ellis's irrational beliefs and a little more. I'm building an assessment, by the way. There is one online that is way too long. So I'm building a shorter assessment, and I'm going to put it on the I Can Speak website. So if you go there and it's not there yet, you can check back in about a month and it will be there. You could download it. So there's the book, honestly, is the outcome of working with folks for about 20 years. So Karen is exactly right. I had a head start. With COVID, I've written 4 books this year, but those books were kind of bumping around in my head for years and years and years. And so I finally sat down and put together a lot of the things that I have learned with my corporate participants, all the workshops that I've designed and developed. It's kind of cheating. You build a workshop for one reason, and then you realize, hey, I can write a book out of this. And that's exactly what has happened.
Now I'm going to have to correct your use of the word cheat, my friend, and say that's repurposing.
Yeah. Okay, fair enough. Fair enough.
And that's
Yes.
reframing.
That's right. And words are just words. They're not good or bad. So let's just remember that they're just words.
Oh, there's some words.
So what about the workshop, Paula?
What are you asking, Michael?
So-
The workshop is a 5-hour workshop, which can be broken up into smaller chunks.
Okay.
But really, the workshop is teaching, first of all, what's going on, why are you feeling the way you're feeling, and that it's okay to feel that way. We look at reframing some of your thoughts,
Mm-hmm.
and then some very specific tools that are described in the book. Some specific tools, breathing being one, but some other simple things
Right.
to kind of get yourself refocused. I don't use in the workshop within my Leadership Academy. I don't explicitly use self-hypnosis, but I do use visualization, and we teach some of that.
So tell me the difference between the two.
There isn't a difference.
I know.
Karen, there isn't, but I don't use some very methodic induction, and I don't use deepeners. It's all the same.
Hypnosis by any other name is still hypnosis. The Greek sleep temples were hypnosis too. So is it.
The real difference is the spelling.
What? The difference is in the spelling?
Is the spelling. Yeah.
Yes, it's true. What I would like to say about Paula's book is that I found it to be a real easy read and with some really good tools. And I'm going to admit to you now, Paula, I have used the campfire story with 2 different clients already because I love it. There you are, to talk about being wired toward negativity. It didn't have anything to do with public speaking. It had to do with their negative thinking, and we needed to move them in more opposite directions. I have several ways that I teach clients about that, and I have now added the campfire story to it, because there's nothing wrong with being aware. If it's a bear, you want that, but just know that that's all it is. It's an awareness, and you can also point yourself into a different direction. You're using your imagination. One of my favorite things in the world to do is use my imagination, and to use it the way I want to use it, not like anybody else tells me I have to use it. So that's what it's about. The people you're talking about, they're using their imagination to its worst possible degree. They're good at it. That's what we want to tell them. And then there I go with that pose. I love to tell my clients, oh my God, you're good at that. And since you're so good at it, let's do it this way. Let's use it to this advantage, because you already own the skill. So let's apply that skill in a different direction.
I work with a lot of folks in IT, and so I use the word program and programming. And I probably should maybe expand that a little bit and be talking the way you just did, in terms of, you're imagining one thing and this isn't working for you. Let's imagine something else. See if we can get a better outcome.
And I just want to say, I always point out how good they are at it. Wow, you're good at that.
Yeah.
That's amazing that you're that good at it. And since you already have that expertise, let's harness that and use it over here. How are they going to argue with that?
Yeah. This is Virginia Satir, by the way, who basically, if somebody says that they have an elevator phobia, for example, she would ask them, are you phobic every single time you get into an elevator? And of course, yes, I am. And then she's going to say, well, isn't that amazing? She says, I don't know anybody who's so consistent at anything. So you really have this special power, and turn it into something useful.
I do that with bugs too. I have a fear of bugs.
Yeah,
you remember to do that every single time. And not all bugs, just spiders. Isn't that interesting? You've compartmentalized that in your brain.
I do that with bugs and Elmer and Porky and Dole.
And we can do a lot of things with cartoon figures too, Michael, now that you mention it, if we want to. We have just a moment left. And Michael, I don't mean to add too much to this, but Paula, just give us a little brief idea of what conflict at work is all about. So the book, you're not doing a worksheet on that and everything, right? I've
got a workbook that'll come out in probably in the next couple of weeks. It's 155 pages for a workbook. That need to do everything with, it sometimes it can be a problem. But the conflict at work, I had the good fortune of being certified to teach a model of conflict resolution that, in my perspective, is the Cadillac. It's amazing. It's really effective. But what I would find is that I would work with folks. They would go through a 3-day workshop with me, and then we would have practice sessions afterwards. We would even role play some conflicts, and they still wouldn't use their tools. They still wouldn't hold that conversation. We got a lot of yes, but, yes, but, yes, but. And I'm thinking about that for a long time. This book was a way for me to really think through, how do we help people get the courage to use a skill that they have? How do we help people step up and have a difficult conversation face to face? And so that's what that book, the book is about.
I know it's all pointed toward conflict at work, and I have absolutely no desire to work in, in that corporate kind of environment. But it's got some useful tips for working with couples, which I do quite a bit.
In fact, I wrote it, Conflict at Work, because that I was easy to pull those examples, because I've worked with so many folks in the corporate setting. But it's absolutely applicable to families, to the baseball team, whatever.
Right.
It's the same thing, no matter what environment you're in.
And the big thing in the book, in that book, is all about when emotions are involved, all bets are off. You got to have some tools in your back pocket when you get those emotions involved.
Nice.
Conflict is not a cognitive event.
Are your books available on, are they from Amazon?
Both, yeah, they're all available on Amazon.
And are they in Kindle as well?
Yes, they are.
Beautiful, because particularly the conflict one, I know some people that need to get that right away. Here in my office, there's always arguments going on, and I work for myself, so you can imagine how it might be for somebody else.
I mailed a copy to a family member. He then went out and bought 15 copies for, he owns a fairly large law firm in Canada. He went out and bought it for all of his partners.
Nice.
And he's not the kind that, he didn't buy it because I was his sister. He bought it because he figured, oh, well, here's something that these folks, we could really work on.
Yeah, I want my sister to read it.
Yeah.
So, well, listen, we're just coming to the end here. I want you to hang on with us, Dr. Paula, because we're going to sign off with you and stuff. But I just want to really quick go over these announcement again, just to remind people. Let's see, the HEA is coming up April 24th here in Orlando, but it's online, of course. So if you're interested in that, you can check it at heahypnosis.com. The Certified Stress Management Consultant course, March 27th and 28th. Check that out through IACT or IMDHA's website if you're interested in registering for that. The presenter series starting March 22nd, 5 Wednesdays, me and Karen delighting you with speakers and presenters from the upcoming Hypno Expo, which is May 21st through the 23rd. And I also promised you, or mentioned to you, I don't know if I promised or not, but I told you I was going to get you this book title. The funny thing is, when you go to Amazon and you look for a book, it will give you other related books, right? So I went to look for this book called Get High Now Without Drugs, that supposedly had some information about breathing. And I also found the Book of Highs, 255 Ways to Alter Your Consciousness Without Drugs. And then I've got...
That's not on that.
There we go. Get High Now Without Drugs. So I don't know what these people have against drugs, but they have got a whole lot of ways for you to alter your state of consciousness. And they're really wonderful things. I think things that are great for hypnotists to know, because one of the things that I find most powerful in doing hypnosis work with people is that as we're doing an induction, we're actually teaching people that they have the ability to change their experience. And ultimately, that's what it is that they're asking for in the first place with regard to whatever the issue is that we're working on. So these are great resources. The Get High Now Without Drugs, the one that is the breathing guy that I mentioned. So his second book is just called Breathe or Breath, I forget which. His name is James Nestor, Nestor. And I really recommend this. It's got some really good stuff in it. So get it today, right after you've gone out to Amazon and looked up Dr. Paula's books and got those as well. So
Paula, if we want to know how to get in touch with you, how do we do that?
That would be Dr. Paula at behaviortransitions.com. behaviortransitions.com.
Thank you very much.
Okay. All right. So we really appreciate it, Dr. Paula. And I'm looking forward to seeing you at the HEA as well. And I'll be getting some more information to you about the details of that. So I'm delighted to have met you. It's been great to have you here tonight. And everybody, again, look for the replay tomorrow, and it will be posted out there. And the reason we ask you to stay now, because we didn't want you to take off just too quickly, as some people, are panicked to get out of the room as fast as they can. But we want everybody to have an opportunity to wish you off and to send you their greetings. So I'm just going to invite everybody to open up your microphones so that in a great cacophony of love and affection, we can say goodnight to Dr. Paula and thank her for her presentation here this evening.
Thank you, Paula, very much.
Thank you, Dr. Paula.
Thank you very much.
Really
Thank you.
Yes.
Wonderful. Thank you. Bye-bye.
When Chico says goodbye.
Bye-bye.